Devon resumed training his left hand, abandoning his goal of becoming the Oleg Zhuk of the right arm. They practiced with the left hand about a year ago. Devon held Leonidas in the center, but his wrist started bending back slightly as Leo applied side pressure. This doesn't necessarily indicate that Leo's pronation is stronger than Devon's cup, but rather that Devon was deliberately adjusting his wrist to compensate with a riser.
That's that riser. There's that riser.
He doesn't even train that hand. The right-hand battle was not even close. He hadn't trained his left hand since his pumpkin theory, nearly 5 years ago. He hasn't posted any videos of his left hand training yet. But I believe he uses the same approach for his left as he does for his right singles with low weights and high reps. His left hand is much healthier, which might lead him to push it too hard. Leonidas had a match with Prudnik and was thoroughly outclassed. Prudnik seemed to be deliberately prolonging the match. Devon and Prudnik also practiced with their left hands, and although Prudnik pinned Devon resisted significantly more than Leonidas, even though he wasn't fully committed. Just my opinion. At 48, Devon is older than many of his competitors, leading some to question whether his age might be a factor in this match. However, others believe that his experience more than compensates for any physical decline. Devon's been in the game for so long, and he's faced every kind of opponent you can think of. Age might slow you down physically, but experience brings wisdom. I think Devon knows exactly what he's doing and won't let age be a factor. Larratt's left hand has always been a significant part of his identity as an arm wrestler. For years, he was known for his ability to dominate opponents with either hand, a rarity in the sport. However, after a series of injuries and surgeries, he had to shift his focus primarily to his right hand. The decision to retrain his left hand is seen by many as a return to form, a revival of the Larratt who once ruled both right-handed and left-handed divisions. Leonidas' hand is huge actually. It looks like Dinas's hand. Devon grips low on his opponent's hand, even when planning to execute an outside move, commonly known as a top roll. This lower grip position allows him to cover the thumb knuckle of his opponent, which is a key aspect of his strategy. Covering the thumb knuckle increases the pronation pressure he can apply, which is essential for a successful top roll. Pronation, in this context, refers to the rotation of the forearm that turns the palm downward, a crucial movement in arm wrestling for controlling the opponent's hand and wrist. When Devon is on the defensive and faces a powerful hit from his opponent, his fingers often slip off his own thumb. This slippage has two consequences. First, it reduces the pronation torque on the opponent's fingers, specifically their final chain of defense. This can be seen as a disadvantage since it weakens Devon's ability to control the opponent's hand. However, the second consequence is in Devon's favor. The slip repositions his riser, the muscle responsible for lifting the wrist upwards, in a more mechanically advantageous position. This shift is particularly beneficial because the low grip Devon employs increases the stability of his fingers, especially the index and middle fingers, which are crucial for maintaining back pressure. Back pressure is the force applied in the direction opposite to the opponent's pull, targeting the opponent's ring and pinky fingers, which are generally weaker. The covered thumb knuckle, while enhancing pronation pressure, simultaneously decreases the riser pressure. As the match progresses and the opponent extends their arm fully, Devon's fingers become less engaged. They may even be seen floating above the opponent's hand. At this stage, torque is applied from the back of Devon's extended wrist rather than through his fingers. This wrist extension, or kickback as Devon refers to it, increases the torque on his own ulnar ligament. This ligament runs along the inner side of the wrist and is crucial for maintaining stability when the wrist is extended. This specific movement also corresponds with the way Devon trains for pronation lifts, emphasizing the extended wrist position. Devon is noted for his ability to lift significant weights on the pronation lift up to 75 kilos with an extended wrist position. I don't know how much he can lift with his left hand. This feat is notable because it increases the torque on the pronator muscles by about 15%, making it a unique and highly effective training method that contributes to his success in stopping opponents with bent wrist. The riser, essentially the muscle group responsible for lifting the wrist in radial direction, plays a critical role. Instead of concentrating on attacking a specific part of the opponent's arm, the riser technique aims to put the arm wrestler's own structure in the most advantageous position. The idea is that by positioning your own structure optimally, you can resist and counteract the force applied by your opponent more effectively. Philosophically, this means that the effort is not about directly putting the opponent in a disadvantageous position. Rather, it's about ensuring that your own arm and body are aligned in such a way that you can withstand and counteract the opponent's force. When rising, you are not targeting a specific part of the opponent's arm chain, but are instead working to resist the force that attempts to tilt your wrist in an ulnar direction. This resistance is focused on preventing the wrist from collapsing downward. In practical terms, Devon suggests that a riser technique does not have a single, specific counter. To effectively counter a strong riser, you need to apply force in multiple directions, rather than relying on a straightforward countering move. This multi-directional approach is necessary because a riser's effectiveness comes from its ability to resist and absorb force in a way that does not directly expose a single weakness. All the left-hand stuff does seem like a distraction given he's been pumpkin training for years. Seems more like a personal experiment for him, plus it brings in some money, I'm sure. So I guess he figures why not. Devon's pronation is so strong that Leonidas basically can't hook him. And also, Devon primarily uses outside arm wrestling, attacking wrist and gas out the arm. Devon is all about rise and pronation, so a taller arm wrestler gives him a lot of problems. Devon always fights shorter guys with shorter leverage. Taller guys can give him problems like Alex. The party arm is still pretty good. That arm is no joke. He still trains it at the table with sparring, and recently with weights. To be fair, part of his success comes from King's moving, and you don't really need to train a bone lock. It's not about the shoulder, it's the humerus angle, which isn't exactly lined to the shoulder, especially when his arm is turned sideways in a King's move, grenading through his shoulder, not only his hand. An interesting thing that happens in the body is when you choose to do a pumpkin-type training, both arms see some of the benefits for training, even if only one is trained. Devon's King's move with lefty is the kickback of his wrist to help prevent any hook option from his opponent and the constant rising and regrouping to dig himself out of that defensive position after getting the stop, since it puts a lot of stress on the tendons. People taking steroids might get very strong muscularly very fast, but the tendons would not be yet up to the task of enduring such forces when their arm is stretched up. There is a bone lock involved, even though the move is all about pronation. The forearm is fully supinated, that is to say, the forearm is at the end of the range of motion. The pronation muscles are engaged, so you don't get armbarred and break your elbow. But you're using that joint lock and rotating your whole arm through the shoulder and body rotation to crack the wrist. This is another reason why it's super effective for Devon Larratt, because his right arm doesn't supinate, so he can hit that lock even earlier. And that's why you can't hook his King's move. Add the fact that his arm doesn't straighten. This allows him to gain height in the hand without dropping all the way below the table. Then you have kickback, which adds more pressure to the pronation through the bottom strap, and rising completes the winning control of the hand.